Hi Algebra. This is week 8 part 1 video, and we worked on two things in class today. We worked on describing a line with a linear equation, so going from the graph to the equation, and then also how to calculate slope from 2 points. If you don't have the graph and you don't have the equation, but you know 2 points on the line, how do you find the slope? So, quick reminder, the equation that we talked about last time, the slope-intercept equation, is right here. It's y equals mx plus b, and the important values to know today, to remember, are going to be m for slope, and that b is your y-intercept. We're going to follow roughly the same steps for graphing from an equation when we're going from a graph to the equation. So these are those steps. First one, just like graphing, is going to be to find the y-intercept. That is your plus b value at the end of your equation. Second thing we're going to do is you're going to find another point and determine your slope. And then the third thing you're going to do is you are going to write that equation, plugging in your slope and your intercept value. So let's go through a problem and work these steps. So here's our line, and the first thing we are going to do is we are going to find our x-intercept, and my x-intercept is, or my y-intercept, sorry, my y-intercept is where I cross this vertical axis, so it's going to be right here at 1. So I know my b value is going to equal 1. Second thing I need to do is find slope. So let's find another point on our graph that crosses at a whole number. I'm going to say this one right here. And then I need to find the slope between these two by finding rise over run. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have to go down. So my rise is going to be negative. It's going to be negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I'm going to go down 5, so negative 5. And then I go positive 1, 2, 3. So negative 5 over 3. So my slope is going to be negative 5/3, which is m equals negative 5/3. And the last thing I'm going to do is I am going to plug it into my equation. Y equals mx plus b. Well, slope is m, so that's this value. And then our b is positive 1, so that is this value. Let's do a couple more example problems. So if you didn't quite get this one, you can find the pattern with me. Okay, so here's our second line, and we're going to use the same steps. So we're trying to find the answers for our equation y equals mx plus b. So what is m and what is b? First thing I'm going to find is b, which is our intercept. So that is right here at 5. So I'm going to say it's going to be y equals some term plus 5. All right, next thing I need to do is I need to find my slope. And if you look at this one, this line, hopefully you can tell that the slope is positive, because as we go left to right, it goes uphill. Sorry, my camera is flipped. Okay, so I'm going to find another point anywhere on this graph. I'm going to choose this one. And let's do rise over run to find the slope between these 2 points. I'm going to start at the one on the left and go to the one on the right. So my rise is going to be up 2. And then my run is 1. They're both in a positive direction, so my slope is going to equal 2 over 1, which equals 2. So I'm going to put that in this first spot, and it's 2x. Don't forget the x, or else it doesn't make a line anymore. So for this line, my equation is 2x plus 5. 2x plus 5. Let's do one more as a practice. So here's our third line for practice. Step 1 is figure out your intercept. So here it's going to be 3. So we know b equals 3. looking at this line going left to right, it's going downhill. So I know my slope is going to be negative. I'm going to find another point. I can pick this one. So let's do rise over run. Rise is going to be -1, and then my run is going to be 1, 2, 3 in a positive direction, so +3. So my slope is going to equal -1 over 3, or -1/3. So my equation is y equals mx plus b. So for m, I would put -1/3, and for b, I would put 3. So my equation is going to end up being y equals -1/3 x plus 3. The second part of what we talked about, these is the assignments on the back of that first page, is finding slope from 2 points. So earlier we talked about slope. You've seen this slide before. We talked about how slope equals m in that equation equals rise over run. And you saw this version, but we didn't really talk that much about it. The triangle is actually a capital Greek symbol called delta, and that triangle means change in. So how did y change divided by how did x change? Another way to write this would be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so I would write this equation down if you are taking notes, because this is the equation you are going to use to do all of the finding the slope from 2 points on your assignment. So this is the one that we're going to use to find the slope of lines when we're given 2 points. Let's talk about what y2 and y1 and x2 and x1 means, and how do we apply this formula. So how do we use this equation? Well, when you're using this equation, you're going to have 2 points. So here are 2 points I made up by using the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to decide one of my points is going to be labeled point 1. So I'm going to do point 1, 2 as point 1. And then 3, 4 is going to be point 2. So for my first point, here's my x value and here's my y value. And when we say x1, we mean x of the first point. y1 is y of the first point. For your second point, your x is going to be x2, and your y is going to be y2. So that's how I'm going to use this and how I'm going to plug my numbers in. And it says which point you use is 1 and 2 doesn't matter. It works whichever way you go. So let's plug these numbers in and find our slope. So in this case, y2 is going to be the y of our second equation. So it's going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. When I plug in my values, it gives me slope equals 4 minus 2 over 3 minus 1. I can solve this. So our slope equals 2 over 2. And that fraction can reduce to +1. So between these two lines, our slope is going to be +1. This next slide is the same thing. It got repeated somehow. Okay, so let's do 2 more examples of how to use this equation. So here are 2 points, -1, 4 and 5, 6. And here's the equation we're going to use. Just like last time, I'm going to call my second point point 2. And I'm going to call my first point point 1. So that means my y2 is going to be 6. And my y1 is going to be 4. Meaning my top of my fraction, or top of my equation, is going to be 6 minus 4. The bottom is going to be our second x minus our first x. So that's going to be 5 minus -1. Remember, 2 negatives cancel, so we end up with 6 minus 4, which is 2, over 5 plus 1, or 6. That gives us a fraction of 2/6, which you can reduce to 1/3. So the slope here is going to be positive 1/3. Take a second, try this one, pause the video, try to work it independently, and then when you're ready, come on back and see if your answer matches the one that I put up here. Just like last time, the second point is number 2. The first one is number 1. So y2 is going to be 4 and y1 is going to be 5. So the top of my equation is 4 minus 5. The bottom is going to be 1 minus 2. I can simplify both of those. 4 minus 5 is negative 1. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. So I get negative 1 over negative 1. And that simplifies to 1. So those are the two processes you are going to use to work on the first part of the weekly assignment for week 8. If you have any questions, please send me an email or at me on Teams, and I'll try to help you out as soon as possible. Those of you who saw the tail, my dog wandered into the room and was giving himself a good stretch. Oh, now he's going to scratch his face. All right, well, if you need any help algebra, let me know. Hope to hear from you soon. Bye.